Hey, and welcome to One Game Dad. I'm Gregory Palaci, the host of what is effectively my podcast, my log, well, more of a vlog, in which I talk about parenting, culture, and, well, video games. Video games is part of culture. But, for me, what I'm doing is, well, this episode is called Moving Parts because I'm getting ready to move house. And that means coordinating a whole bunch of stuff. As being a stay-at-home dad, a lot of the move is going to fall squarely on my shoulders in terms of getting the new apartment ready, as well as getting the old one packed and cleaned, and then everything to the new place. But before we do that, I have to go paint that place, and with the kid, that's not easy. Of course, I have the in-laws who are going to help take care of the kid as well as presumably help paint, but I feel like if I can just get there and have the kid be watched, then I can paint everything myself quite quickly and yeah, have no issues. I mean, not that the place needs much, but there's a couple walls that were painted some awkward colors by previous owners, and yeah, we want to change that.
Captain, banks in your area
And
have
I'm getting a
upgraded
text
their
message.
technology to be impenetrable using a new, unidentified energy source. Nearby construct should have the data we need to locate a sample of this technology.
So moving means I may
Let's
not
take them apart.
be able to record in the next week or two. In part because it turns out our new building doesn't have cable internet, which is quite odd. Especially here in Finland. Most places are wired, but this place turns out to not to be, and it's not something we looked into when we first saw the place. I mean, there's ways around it, and we will deal with it, but it may put
I skimmed the cores. There's a
the
weird
kibosh
energy spike
on
nearby that might be what we're looking for.
I would be happy to
another
analyze
episode
any
for a
samples
week
you
or two.
obtain.
That said, I do have another podcast which is launching called Startup Hell, and you can find that out on startuphell.com. What you won't find yet is it on iTunes, in part because I'm doing it with some friends, and so we're doing a bit of a soft launch for this podcast. Not my idea. I'm more of, let's just get it out there. Let's just
We've got the spike. There's a Minotaur here using those fancy shields.
The
just
captain always finds a way.
move forward and make it. Just make a get it out there, get people listening.
I detect additional spikes nearby. We should collect them for analysis.
But
Perhaps we
the
can discover
others,
how they're
well,
producing it.
wanted a more
And then blow 'em up.
startup-centered approach, which I don't think necessarily applies to something like a podcast because it is a creative product, because it is content. I think it's the kind of thing that, because there's minimal investment on our part, it's the sort of thing you get out there and then you refine over time rather than trying to get it perfect from the beginning. If we were doing something like what Gimlet does with their podcast, that's something else. But we're not making money on this. This is based solely on our personalities, solely on what
Captain,
we're
additional
capable
energy
of
source overhead.
producing. And so, yeah, I just felt like going a more, I don't know, not quite, I wouldn't call it laissez-faire, but a more just get it out there, get people listening is a better approach than than worrying about it too much. And I mean, that's not how these guys work. They're from the tech world, they're from startups, and so for them it's always been about, you know, getting information and refining, and that's fine. And I think you need a level of an editorial process in what you do for any creative work, but at the same time, this is a type of work that isn't, how do you call it, isn't,
This is superb data. I have located one final set of fonts for you to collect.
Failsafe, this is turning into kind of a long walk.
Hey,
oh, what do we call it? It isn't,
I live in a dilapidated boat.
it isn't something that has the concerns of, say, a TV show or a movie that needs to work for a mass audience. Ideally, yes, we would get a mass audience, but at the same time, this product is greatly unproven. And I don't know if that's going to change, like what's going to happen with it.
I traced the samples to one source and have pushed its coordinates to your tracker. I do not believe the
So
vets
I'm not
want
so
to give up
worried
their fancy shield.
about
You're gonna
things in
have
this,
to make them.
in the same way the others are. I'm just happy to be making the podcast, to get to, you know, hang out with some friends and chat a little bit and put something more out there into the world. And that's, I think, the big thing. Like, I coming from a media background, it's always been about doing and getting something out there. You can always improve. You can always do more. And yeah, if this piece doesn't hit, the next will. You look at it and then you make the next one. I mean, because they're small, because they are small things, that's why it works. They're not big, massive things. I mean, but you don't even do that with books. You don't put a book out there, then take it back in and edit it. You do that for a little bit, or you just keep moving on. Content's interesting, especially now that we have things like YouTube, Twitch, where it is about their live streaming. Anything where you are just constantly putting things out there. Because you're not, you lack that concern for, well, that this individual No, you don't lack that concern. You want it to be the best possible thing it can. However, you're not going to... You're not going to... I don't know, what's the term? Oh boy, missed that jump. You're not going to hold off putting something out there in the world. You're not going to keep it to yourself refining like many people do books or music or, you know, poetry. What you're going to do... Oh boy. What you're going to do is just keep improving, making more. And, you know, I now have to try and balance that with their understanding of what's possible, of what can and should be done. How the media actually works. I mean, so there's some moving parts, and of course we all have busy schedules. Even I, stay-at-home dad, have a busy schedule to balance. And that's, you know, there's moving parts. I'm not doing as much as a production as I used to on some of my other podcasts. And that is nice, because editing is really time consuming, and I don't want a heavily edited podcast. I want something that we can just get out there in the world. I want a conversation. I don't want to be doing an essay like I was before with Full-Time Hell. I mean, of course, that's what I want. That's not necessarily what others want, and this is a team thing. And, you know, as this episode is called, there's moving parts to that. We all have to agree, because we all have ownership over what we are ultimately making. And I don't want to force the guys to do something that they don't want to. Not that I'm going to force anyone to do anything, but, you know, it's a shared project. And so these are all things I have to take into consideration now, because, and it's not always something I enjoy. It's something I want to do, But because you're having to balance things and you're having to work with others so much, or you're having to deal with them and
Failsafe.
their...
We can report those shields won't be a problem anymore. Nice catch.
The Vex Collective is reporting the same thing. Hopefully, they do not possess the resources.
You're having
do
to
this
work
twice.
with their expectations as well. That's all troublesome. And it's... well, it's not troublesome, and it's not that I have trouble working with others. It's just that all of those moving parts can be difficult. Everyone prioritizes something else, and ultimately getting something out there. And we've had some difficulties getting our podcasts out there. These are things I struggle with. Not getting things out there because I do want to just get stuff out there, but convincing others that this is the method, this is the right approach for such a project. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's interesting dealing with those dealing with people in this regard. And not that I can't, but I just... well, there's expectations to manage. And everyone wants something different. Sorry, a little stuffy today. But, yeah. So, we have a podcast coming out. It's called Startup Hell. It's about startups, technology, business. It's very much a follow on from my previous podcast about startups, Full-Time Hell. But this time, I'm talking with others. We're having a conversation. It's not going to be an essay, which is nice. I enjoy having conversations. I think it's also a format of podcasts that can be difficult to do. I think it's underestimated. People are like, oh, we have great conversations. People want to listen to this. But what ends up happening is people speak over one another. People don't have points, or they just go in circles in their conversations. And that is boring, or they just don't have anything to say. Not that I necessarily do, but well, let me just put it this way. yeah, so you can find that. Hopefully I'll soon have it on iTunes. And because of that, you'll be able to download it. I'll also post links on the website, and you'll have links on the YouTube and everywhere. So, yeah, be on the lookout for that. Other than that, like, as far as being a dad, because the weather's been turning here in Helsinki and more towards rain than anything else, we have, well, I have not actually been always walking my daughter outside. What I have taken to is keeping her inside. And when she needs to sleep in the afternoon. So she's on me in the Tula, and we just walk. Well, I walk her around the flat and until she falls asleep, and then if I'm lucky I get to play a bit of a video game, which tends to be Destiny 2. And I do this in part because, yeah, it's raining and the weather sucks, and having a child on you in the rain means my jacket doesn't close. It also means it can be very, very hard to
Greetings.
get her into the stroller because of all the weather. So, yeah. Something to consider if you ever have children. Or
I am happy to assist
you live in a wet place.
stores are yours whenever you have need of
Yeah, so that's been a nice development in terms of what we're capable, what we can get done, but it's, yeah, she doesn't necessarily sleep as well, and a good part of that is because she likes the cold. And she's a Finn, and Finnish babies like to sleep in the cold. So, yeah, something to consider if you ever have a child. That
All alone. Ugh. Humans.
yeah, that, well, being outside or getting your kid to sleep, which is the ultimate goal, or the thing you ultimately need, is not always under your control. And so, yeah, you do what you can, and you try to find ways around it to make it work for you. In my case, well, I've done what I can to make it work for me. But it's not something that's making it's not making anything, what's the term? Well, I'm not any more productive. And this is the thing, I have to balance my needs with, well, my needs. The baby's needs. The baby's needs are what always comes first. But it also means that I'm not getting to do things like clean the house, or eat, cook, on, you know, maybe making something for her. If I'm out, then sometimes I can go grocery shopping, but it just, like, her being on me, her inability to go down for a nap ultimately limits what gets done. And, you know, that's That's more stuff that gets balanced. And striking that balance, I mean, well, I've spoken about that previously. It's interesting, though, what balance comes in terms of games, because Destiny 2 certainly has added some interesting features. The workification of the game. I'm not gonna, because you can't gamify a game. It's already a game. It's just an idea. But the framework in which they have set everything up in is interesting. Sorry. I've got a bit of a cold, which does not help. No. So... The framework which they've set up is good. There's activities to do, but I don't feel like there's much motivation beyond the collection of loot to do a lot of them. Like, previously, strikes were the grind, and other than the times when you gain, there's a daily milestone for the strikes, or a weekly milestone, I don't find myself doing them. I enjoy the strikes, but there just isn't good reason to do them. And I think that, combined with what they've changed about the quest structure, the fact that you don't have a journal anymore, is detrimental to the motivation to do anything, to return. I return to Destiny 2 in part because playing a game like this, with everything being short and bite-sized, is ideal for the amount of time I have. I want to play longer RPGs. I've been trying to play Divinity Original Sin, but I have my own issues with those games. But Destiny, Destiny 2 Destiny just... it's... I don't know. Yeah, I don't feel like there's a real drive. I have the adventures out there, and I haven't completed most of them. Or I've completed all the ones on Titan. I still have 3 on Io, 3 on Nessus, and 5 on Earth to complete. But I don't have a good justification for why. And the only reason I'm doing this lost sector again is because I need to use this gun, which looks like the golden gun from James Bond. And I need to kill, well, here on Nessus, I need to kill Fallen with the golden health bar, as you see, which is the captain. And so here I am again, running through these same areas, killing these same guys. Because I'm trying to complete a quest. Because it will eventually nab me an exotic weapon. And not like I'm definitely enjoying the exotic weapon quests. But there's there's not a lot of variation in this game in what I'm doing. Not that I'm asking for a lot. But it's there we go. I did it. Got the codes. So let's raid this chest one more time. Yeah. So there's elements to Destiny 2 that I really think they could have done better. Like, I just give me a quest log. Give me give me a journal. Give me something more than this milestones, because it's not telling me the small stuff, the small weapons quests that I have to accomplish. What it's doing is hiding things. So they've added all this lore, but there's no place again in the menu for me to read it. There's no place for me to know if I've already examined an item. I don't want to keep examining the same items again. And that's the thing. There's a level of repetition to games, particularly games like Destiny, that they work to eliminate by adding more content, by adding greater variety. But then they take steps back in that regard. And again, there's a lot of moving parts to this game, but to any game. And so, yeah, getting those things done isn't as motivating. What I hope is more motivating is the game class I'm teaching at Arbis about creating computer games using Twine. I had 4 students show up at the first class. They seem to enjoy it. I hope that they return. It's an evening class. And there's a minimal investment on their part, so it's not like they have to, but I hope I'm, showing people the enjoyment of what you can do with Twine. So yeah, I have that.
We don't know what we've lost. We are that blind.
It's every Thursday at the same time I'm running a game jam as part of it. You can find it on itch.io/jam/Ordlek. That's ORDLEK. And yeah, I mean, that's one thing I'm trying to do, is one bit. That's one part that I'm trying to move to, well, so that should I return to work, should I no longer remain a stay-at-home dad, that I can, well, I have something to fall back on. Not that I'm going to be a teacher. I'm not actually a great teacher, nor do I enjoy teaching all that much, but I do like sharing my interests. I do like sharing my knowledge with people who want to learn, who want to do something. So teaching adults is definitely easier than teaching children. I don't know why people have to like children, but they do. It's not to say I don't like my child, because she is my child. I just don't like other people's children. But hey, that's what you get. I mean, other people's children suck. Seriously, suck. And yeah, with that goal, I think I'm going to call it a day, because there's more quests I could be doing for the Sturm hand cannon, exotic hand cannon, but what's the point? I have to get to the new place, I have to get cleaned up, I have other things to do, and I would love to just keep streaming, I'd love to keep talking, but there's so many other things I need to do. And so, until then, thanks for watching, thanks for listening. I'm Gregory Placi, One Game Dad. You can find me on Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, at One Game Dad. And of course, you can find everything I do at onegamedad.com. I'm also on Patreon, should you like to support me in all that I do. Thanks again, and tune in next week, hopefully, for another episode. If not, maybe the week after. Talk to you soon. Bye. Have a good one.